I'm going to need a beer. I got to get a beer for this. Comedy relies on three things. It relies on the comedian, the venue, and the audience. Today, I want to talk about the 10 things that an audience member can do to make sure it's the best show and they are the best audience for the comedian and for the venue.
Number 10.
Sit up close. A lot of these venues don't have like assigned seating. They don't place you anywhere. They leave it up to the audience to come in and just kind of pick the seats they want. And the first place that always disappears is the back row. Everyone wants to sit on the back row. They just want to watch as an observer, but they don't want to be in the comedy show. So they hide as far away from the comedian as possible because they're so scared that a comedian's going to see them and either make fun of them or point them out about the way they're dressed or who they're with. That's not necessarily the case. Most comedians don't tend to attack random audience members just because. We just don't do it. Normally there's something that's prompted it. You've done something, for that attention from the comedian. We only fire at the audience if that audience member has done something to deserve it. Period. So sit up close. Laughter is contagious. If there's a room that seats like 100, 150 people, and there's only 20 people that showed up, and those 20 people are spread out through the room, it's very difficult to get all of them laughing at the same time. But if you all sit close together up front, it's an easy show, and it's going to be a great show. You're actually going to make a better show for yourself and the comedian and the venue if you all sit close to each other. It's not like movie theater rules where it's like you walk in, there's only 20 people there, and you try to find the corner or wherever you can hide away from each other. No, comedy, it's a give and take. You got to be sitting next to each other. You have to laugh, and people don't laugh if they can hear themselves laugh. So if they're sitting next to somebody else who's laughing, they'll laugh along with and not pay and won't notice it. So it just becomes an ambient laughter. But when you can hear yourself laugh, they shut it down, and it makes the show very tough for the comedian. The comedian stops trying so hard, and it just starts to bomb the whole show. So it will save yourself and make it a good show by sitting close to the front, sit close to other people, get ready to laugh, have a good time.
Number 9.
If a comedian asks you a question, respond. If they ask you a question, just give them an honest answer. Don't give a fake answer or try to say something funny like you're not supposed to be on right now. If we're asking you like, is this your wife? Just respond to like, about to be my ex-wife. Like, no, just, is your wife? Yes. What do you do for a job? I clean up shit. Like, no, just say you're a plumber. Like, you don't have to, you don't have to be a comedian right now. Just give an honest answer. We've got a reaction. We can get the reaction we want. We're asking a question. We're baiting a question because we want you to respond to trigger another story or to give us another, tie to the audience. And that's all you needed for. I've literally had a show where I had some high school kids that came in the middle of the show. I started trying to talk to them because they kind of disrupted the show a little bit. So I tried to talk to them. And every time I spoke to them, they were like a deer in headlights. They just stared at me. So I repeated the question. I thought maybe they didn't hear me. And then they just kept staring at me. They almost stared at me like it was the TV talking to them. They were so lost on the whole thing. But they were willing to disrupt the show, but they weren't willing to like be a part of the show. It's frustrating. If you do disrupt the show, you're set up to be attacked. If you disrupt the show in any way, you get up too loud, you knock a plate over, something, just accept that you might catch something from the comedian. It might not be harsh. It might be just a reprimand or something, or just drawing attention to you. But talking to you is the comedian is not trying to make fun of you. Just because the comedian talks to you, he's not heckling you. He's not picking on you. He's just talking to you. So talk. Just talk.
Number 8.
Turn off your fucking phone. Every live performance, every movie says turn off your phone. Turn it off. Turn it to vibrate. Whatever. Don't even turn it to vibrate. Turn it the fuck off. You don't need to hear from anybody. Anybody that was worth being with should be there with you. You got an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, that you just need to not have your phone on. You need to focus, pay attention. At this point, they've gotten to where they tell you before every live performance, turn off your cell phones and keep your table talk down during the show. That's like every part, but it's like audiences at this point have just tuned it out. They don't hear it anymore. So they don't give a shit. And it's inevitably, I'd say like 1 out of 5 shows, a phone goes off. That's way too frequent. I actually had a show where an audience member had her phone go off 4 times in a row. And it was ringing. It was like it went off. She silenced it. I said, by the way, we said turn off the phones. Just go ahead and turn off the phone. And she goes, I can't. I have a babysitter. I'm like, okay, well, was that the babysitter? She goes, no. I'm like, okay. Then it rang again. She silenced it. I'm like, was that the babysitter? She goes, no. I'm like, can you just turn off the phone? She goes, I have to have a babysitter. I'm like, I understand needing to keep your phone on because you have a babysitter, but maybe turn the ringer off. Put it on vibrate and sit on the damn thing. Shut the fuck up. Turn off the fucking phone.
Number 7.
Show up on time. That is super easy to do. You know what time the show starts. They tell you what time the show starts. They even sometimes maybe will delay show because all the crowd's still trying to get in because they all showed up right at showtime. So it takes a couple seconds to get everyone filtered in and get them seated and get their drink orders done. But that doesn't mean that, oh, well, you can show up 10 minutes late because they don't always start on time. There isn't 15 minutes of previews. This isn't a movie at the movie theater. When the comedian's going to go on, he's got to go on. Particularly if there's two shows and you're supposed to be at the early show has got to start when it's got to start because they can't delay it at all or it's going to run into the second show. So they have to start on time on early shows in particular, but don't show up late. Don't show up like, oh, don't worry, there's a feature X going to go on first. They're still a comedian and you're being rude to them. Even though it's not the headliner, it's somebody that you should be paying attention to. Someone's supposed to warm up the crowd. You don't want to show up just because you're waiting for Bill Engvall to come on and you don't give a shit about Larry that's going on before him. Just show up when the show says it's going to start. There's going to be an MC. He's going to chat for a little while. But coming in the middle of the show, you're going to disrupt the show and you're going to draw attention to yourself. And then you're going to break the comedian's concentration. And he's going to have to focus on you and make fun of you for showing up late. Just show up on time. Show up 15 minutes. If you got a big party, show up 30 minutes early. If you're going to have like a birthday or bachelorette party, or you're going to have a big group, whatever, get there early. That way you can get your seats squared away. Everyone can get their drinks going and no one has to worry about anything.
Number 6.
No one cares that it's your bachelorette party. And I say bachelorette, I focus on that over the bachelor because in my entire history of doing stand-up comedy, I think I've only seen one, maybe 1.5 bachelor parties. And when I say a half, because I think the second bachelor party was more like one of the friends couldn't go to the bachelor party, so they kind of just regrouped up again for one night and decided to go see comedy. Basically, it's bachelorette parties that show up. They show up, and because they're bachelorettes, it's all about them and the bride-to-be. And they've got their dick toys out and their dick straws, and they're like, get a drink for the comedian, put the dick straw in it, it'd be hilarious. Like, the comedian doesn't want a dick straw. If the comedian feels like it, he might talk to the bachelorette. He might talk to the bachelorette party, but he's probably going to make fun of you, make a couple dick jokes, whatever. But it's not about you. I know it's right before your big day and you're having the bachelorette party, but the comedian has a set. There's no plan that you are going to be there. He's got a set he's going to work on. He doesn't want to stop and make fun of you or fun of your friends because it's your bachelorette party. And if it's your birthday party and one of your friends wants to run up to the comedian before the show and go, hey, it's Doug's birthday. You mind, ripping on him? He'll be sitting next to me, he'll be wearing a hat. Can you make fun of him a little bit because it's his birthday? Can you just rip on it? Like, we don't want to. Don't tell us to go and heckle an audience member because that's what gives a bad taste in everyone else's mouth. They're like, oh, that the comedians will just randomly target somebody and go after them. We don't want to talk about your friend. We may say happy birthday to him, but honestly, every comedian, we have a set in mind. We know what we're going in there to do. We know exactly what we're going to say. Just let us get it out. Let us say it. We don't need to stop and do lip service to everybody that thinks that their day's important. We get it. But you're at our show. Just let us go to bars afterwards. Have the bartender try to make a blowjob drink for your bachelorette lady, and just move on.
Number 5.
Don't shout out your own punchlines. There's a lot of people that go to the comedy clubs, and I've seen it where they already are funny people, and they're very used to getting everyone to laugh. And it's almost like they get jealous when they see a comedian up there getting their friends to laugh, and they're used to being one that gets everyone to laugh. So they start kind of shouting out their own punchlines, thinking they're going to wing out some funnier things than the comedian. Like, well, they're going to show this audience that they're funnier than the comedian. The chances are you're stepping on what the comedian's already built up. A joke is like pumping flammable gas into the room. The setup is just pumping gas into the room. You're trying to get as much gas pumped in the room in a quick amount of time, and then the punchline is supposed to ignite that gas. So you can't reignite a room the gas has already been burnt out of it. So if a comedian is starting to build up this set, and he's starting to build up this, the setup for this punchline, and then some jackass in the corner shouts out a punchline that's way weaker than the comedian's, it still will ignite the room a little bit and burn out all the gas. And then the comedian's punchline is going to fail. Even if it's a funnier punchline, it will still fail on the back of the weak punchline that just got thrown out. And then that guy's just taking all the laughs that the comedian just set up for him. So don't shout out your own punchlines just because you see where the joke's going. Sometimes the rest of the room doesn't see where the joke's going. You got to just let it build. Let the comedian build the joke that he wanted to tell before you just take it away from him. That's almost as bad as thievery because you're stealing that comedian's joke in front of him.
Number 4.
Texting is just as rude as answering your phone. We see you texting. I mean, your face lights up. We can see that you're texting. Just turn off the fucking phone. You don't need to be texting people. It's obnoxious.
Number 3.
Don't pregame. Don't go to a bar before the show with your friends and start drinking and doing shots and then show up at the show, because you won't make it through the show. The show's going to be about an hour and a half, 2 hours at the max, an hour and a half, and you show up already lit. You're going to get a couple more drinks. You're going to be belligerent during the show. You're not going to be able to pay attention as well because you're too drunk. And just because you're thinking you're making the show better or that you're enjoying the show more, you're not. You're actually disrupting, because I've never seen someone that went pre-gamed be successful through a show. They started to kind of fall off. They start having a hard time following what the comedian's doing. They start leaning towards heckling a little bit because they're so detached from what's going on. They're almost having an out-of-body drunk experience. You don't need to. There's drinks at the bar. There's drinks at the comedy club. Get drinks there. Side note, if your friend is too drunk to go to the comedy club and you're supposed to go to the comedy club with your friend and your friend got kind of wasted, jump on the grenade. Go ahead and keep your friend from going to the comedy club. Take them somewhere else. Take them to IHOP or Waffle House or wherever and just jump on that grenade for us, for the comedians and the club. We don't want to deal with your drunk friend.
Number 2.
Talking is heckling. I know that you think talking to the comedian about how the last joke was a good representative of your friend Doug. We don't really care. We're building a set here. We've got a momentum we're building, and we've got to have this joke parlays into this joke. And if you break that momentum, we have to start all over again. Or abandon a joke altogether just because you stepped in the middle of it. Just because you're talking, you think that, oh, we're having a conversation. This is not time for a talk. Tell us a story afterwards. Comedians love stories. Tell us a story about you and your friend Doug later and how he's a dipshit that did whatever the comedian just said. We don't want to listen to that. But don't tell us in the middle of the show. Yes, the traditional heckler says boo and you suck. Those guys get kicked out real quick because those don't really exist. It's the hecklers that don't realize they're hecklers, where they think they're just participating in the show. Unless the comedian has talked to you directly, there's no reason to start a conversation with them. Even though you're not talking directly to the comedian, talking to your friend too loudly can be disruptive. Just take it outside. If you have to have a conversation that's going to require more than 2 words, you need to leave the showroom. They say keep your table talk down during the show because they really just don't, they just need your focused attention. It's like a movie theater. You shouldn't be chatting in the middle of a movie anyway. It's rude.
Number 1.
Don't try to tell a comedian a joke. This is kind of more just an FYI. It doesn't really matter. You can, you can't, but comedians don't necessarily need you to tell them some street joke that you heard at the water cooler. We don't find it nearly as funny. Chances are we've already heard it before. And even if we haven't heard the joke before, we're comedians. We understand joke formula. We know where the joke is going. Chances are we might even have a funnier version of that joke. So you don't need to tell us what joke you think is so funny, and especially be insulting by afterwards, after you tell some street joke, and then tell us we can use that. For what? Do you think comedians just go up there and recite jokes that they've memorized out of a joke book? That's not how it works. If you want to tell a comedian a funny anecdote about you and your wife or you and your friend, something that happened, good, tell us that, because we might be able to use that in a set later, potentially, if it's a really good story. I don't think I've ever actually done that. I've never taken someone's story that they told me and then like reworked it into a bit. But we do appreciate like just real stories. But don't come and tell us a street joke. We don't really care. This is just information for you in the future if you ever decide to go see a comedy show. Just the best way to try to be the best audience member ever. And the comedian will love you. The venue will love you. Probably get free tickets. I don't know. If you're just awesome. I really hope I didn't come off sounding bitter. This is from a blog I wrote like forever ago. I had like a series of shows that just had like some of the worst audiences ever. And I was kind of in a bad place. I was pretty angry at the time. So I wrote this. This is just a bunch of, I don't know. Go get drunk beforehand. Shout out the comedian. I don't give a shit. Do what you want. Motherfucking fly still alive. There. Fucking is. Fuck you. Got him. Got the little fucker. Got you. Fuck you. That's a win, motherfucker. That's a win. Celebrate.